Hello and welcome to HW News. After a lockdown that stretched over for almost 3 months, the process of unlocking the country has begun. Now, several activities have opened up with the aim of restoring the normalcy in the country. Offices and shops are allowed to open up. Several other activities are also allowed to open up. Now, elections are a very important part of our democracy, which ensure that all of the people who are eligible to vote take part in the process and they help elect a government for their state, local administration or the nation. But with COVID-19 still around, the question that many countries across the world facing is what can we do about it? So many countries across the world are grappling with the same question. The US, which is the most hit country by the pandemic, there several voters are demanding mail-in ballot. On the other hand, the New Zealand has decided and it has declared that they will postpone the elections. The same announcement was made by New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. In India, where several assembly elections are due in the coming months, also the by-polls which are due in the coming months, what India is going to do about it to ensure that all the voters get a fair chance to participate in the process, which is so important for the democracy, and also ensure that their health is taken care of, they don't contract COVID-19. So yesterday, the Election Commission of India issued a set of guidelines that have to be followed in the process of election. Now, these are related to social distancing norms and also what are the things that voters and political parties, the candidates of political parties have to take care of. On the other hand, if we look at it, Bihar will be the first state which will conduct assembly polls in the state following these set of guidelines, and this is a poll amid the pandemic that we are talking about. The election dates for Bihar assembly elections are not yet declared by the Election Commission of India, but it is expected that the dates will be announced next month and the election may be held around October-November. So what are these challenges that political parties, the voters are going to face, because this is the first time that we are conducting a poll amid pandemic? It will be definitely be a challenge for political parties because there is a lot of limits, lot of restrictions on political gatherings which are banned. Political gathering, a large congregation is not allowed. Voters are asked to ensure their safety. They are asked to use gloves while voting, and several other guidelines have been issued by the Election Commission of India. So in this video today, we are going to talk about these guidelines. We are going to talk about what are the limitations that the guidelines put on the party candidates and political parties as well. What are the standard operating procedures for the polling booths where people will go and vote, who are eligible for postal ballots, and also how the counting will be done. What are the arrangements made at polling station? There must be mandatory sanitization of polling station, preferably a day before the poll. Secondly, thermal scanner at the entry point of every polling station location should be placed. A thermal checking of voters at entry point of polling station location or polling station either by polling staff or paramedical staff or ASHA worker should be done. If temperature of the voters is above the set norms of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare at first reading, then it will be checked twice, and if it remains, the high temperature remains, then the elector shall be provided with a token or certificate and he will be asked to come for voting at the last hour of poll. At the last hour of poll, such electors shall be facilitated with voting, strictly following the COVID-19 related preventive measures. A help desk will be set up for distribution of such tokens to the voters on first come first serve basis so that they do not wait in the queue. A marker to demonstrate social distancing for queue will be placed and a circle will be earmarked for 15 to 20 persons of 2 yards, which is 6 feet distance for voters standing in the queue depending on the availability of the space. There shall be 3 queues each, one for male, one for females and one for person with disabilities or senior citizen voters. The service of BLOs or volunteers etc. may also be engaged to monitor and regulate the social distancing norms very strictly. One shaded waiting areas with chairs, dari, etc. will be provided for male and female separately within the polling station premises so that voter can participate in voting process without any safety concerns. Wherever possible, a booth app shall be used at the polling station. Now, soap and water shall be provided at the entry-exit point of every polling station, and in absence of soap and water, sanitizer can be provided at the entry or exit point at every polling station. Face masks in reserve for those electors who are not carrying the mask will be kept. So there should be face masks should be made available at every polling station for those electors, for those voters who are not carrying face masks. Awareness posters on COVID-19 should also be displayed at visible locations in the polling station premises. Sitting arrangement in polling station for the polling personnel and polling agents shall be made as per the norms of social distancing. There should be 6 feet distance between them as well. If polling agent or counting agent is having a temperature which is above the prescribed limit by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, then their reliever shall be allowed by presiding officer, who will keep a record accordingly. So the polling agent who has high temperature will discharge his duties. He will go out and his reliever will take over his work. During the process of identification of voter, the voters will require to lower the face mask for identification whenever required. At any given point of time, only one voter will be allowed to stand in front of each polling official, maintaining social distance. Hand gloves shall be provided to the voters for signing on the voter register and pressing button of EVM for voting. Sanitizers will also be kept inside the booth at appropriate locations with clear direction for the use by voters. COVID-19 patients who are quarantined will also be allowed to cast their vote at the last hour of the poll day at their respective polling stations under the supervision of health authorities, strictly following the COVID-19 related preventive measures. Sector magistrates shall coordinate this in their allocated polling stations. In case of those voters who are residing in the notified areas as containment zones, then the guidelines shall be issued separately. A kit for polling officers. Now the following items shall be provided to every polling officials and security personnel other than those where PPEs are needed. So in some places, PPE kits should be provided to polling officials, and in addition to PPE kits, these are the other prescribed items that should be provided to them. First is mask, then sanitizer, a face shield and gloves. These are the things that should be provided to every polling officer. Now let's talk about who is eligible for postal ballot facility. Option of postal ballot facility has been extended to the electors of following categories. First is electors who are marked as persons with disabilities. Second is electors above the age of 80 years who are senior citizens and who are the vulnerable citizens. Electors who are employed in notified essential services, medical services, cleaning services, sanitation services, etc. So these are the workers who are employed in essential services will have a postal ballot facility. Electors who are COVID-19 positive or who are COVID-19 suspect or who are in home quarantine or institutional quarantine can opt for postal ballot service. Now let's talk about what are the campaign restrictions and what are the campaign guidelines by political parties and contesting candidates. First is door-to-door campaign, which is a very important part or method of the campaigning which has been adopted by several politicians over the time. Now, subject to any other restrictions including the COVID-19 guidelines, a group of only 5 persons, including the candidate, is allowed to door-to-door campaigning, but this does not include the security personnel. So, along with 5 persons, these 5 persons include the candidate himself. So, candidate and 4 other persons can be allowed for door-to-door campaigning, but he can also take with him the security personnel. Second is road shows. The convoy of vehicles should be broken after every 5 vehicles instead of 10 vehicles. The interval between 2 sets of convoy of vehicles should be half an hour instead of gap of 100 meters. So after every 5 vehicles in your convoy during road show, there should be a gap. Earlier this gap was for 10 vehicles. So after every 10 vehicles there used to be a gap, and this gap the time interval between these two sets of convoys of vehicles should be half an hour now, because earlier it was 100 meters of distance. Now it has to be a distance of at least half hour, and half hour interval should be there between two convoys of 5 vehicles. However, if there are security vehicles, that can also be included in the convoy. Now let's talk about election meetings. The public gatherings and rallies may be conducted subject to adherence to extant COVID-19 guidelines. So these are the guidelines for conducting election meetings as well. The public gatherings and rallies may only be allowed in case you are following these guidelines. So these guidelines should be laid out by the district election officer. What are these guidelines? First of all, the district election officer should in advance identify the dedicated grounds for public gathering with clearly marked entry and exit points. In advance, the district election officer must identify which are the grounds which can be used for public gatherings by political parties and various candidates. There also should be an entry and exit point which should be marked so that people will find it very easy. There will be one entry point, one exit point, or multiple entry or exit points. That has to be decided by the district election officer. Secondly, in all such identified grounds, the district election officer should in advance put markers to ensure social distancing norms by the attendees. So just like polling station, even in the grounds where public gatherings or rallies are to be held, there should be markers placed. A circular marker should be placed, circle should be made where people can identify that we have to stand on this much distance. Thirdly, nodal district health officers should also be involved in this process to ensure that all COVID-19 related guidelines are adhered to by all concerned in the district. Then district election officer and district superintendent of police should ensure that the number of attendees does not exceed the limit which is prescribed by the State Disaster Management Authority for public gatherings. So not many people can come for public gatherings, but this number has to be prescribed by the State Disaster Management Authority, and only that number of people can come for the rally. The district election officer should also depute a sector health regulators to oversee that COVID-19 instructions and guidelines are being followed during these meetings. The political parties and candidates concerned should ensure that all the COVID-19 related requirements like face mask, sanitizers, thermal scanning, etc. are fulfilled during each of these activities. Now what happens if you don't comply with these guidelines, with these instructions? Anybody who is violating instruction on COVID-19 measures will be liable to proceeded against as per the provisions of Section 51 to 60 of the Disaster Management Act 2005, besides the legal action under Section 188 of the IPC and other legal provisions as applicable. So these are the broad guidelines that we were talking about, but for the detailed guideline, I am also sharing the link of original document from Election Commission of India in the description box, so do check it out and also let us know if these guidelines are enough to protect the voters amid COVID-19, and would you also go to a polling booth and vote in such a situation. Do let us know what you think in the comment box below. For more news and updates, you can log on to www.hwnews.in.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.
If you like this video, please share it, and we would love to hear your comments in the comments section down here. Also, please do like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter to get minute-to-minute news updates. For more such shows and videos, well, subscribe to our YouTube channel.